My name is Kaylee, and over the years I've taken a look at what some people believe to be pyramids from an ancient lost advanced civilization, while scientists perceive these as mountains or dormant volcanoes. I would like to quickly mention that this video is sponsored by Forge of Empires, but as always, more on the sponsor later in the video. I often receive comments under these videos pointing to other possible pyramids, even though I've actually already covered them on the channel. So I thought, why not compile these different videos into 1 hour-and-a-half long video, where we will continuously ask ourselves, is it a pyramid? Is it a dormant volcano? Or is it a mountain? So I will tell you all about the theories, and I will explain the scientific arguments against these theories, but I will not tell you what to think. I like to leave you with all the information and to reach a conclusion yourself. It's not up to me to tell you what you need to believe, but it is up to me to inform you as best as I can and leave you with the space to form your own opinion, as that has always been the basis of my fact or fiction playlist. I personally think that it's also fun to see how my work has changed over the years, since the first video I made about this subject was published in the summer of 2020. Nearly 5 years ago, and boy did I look different back then. But before we dive into this hour-and-a-half long journey where we will continuously ask ourselves, is it a mountain? Is it a pyramid? Or is it a dormant volcano? I would like to quickly tell you about today's sponsor. Just a quick heads up on an amazing game that you need to check out. Forge of Empires is a strategy game where you get to take a tiny settlement and grow it into a bustling empire, all while navigating through different historical eras. You'll start way back in the Stone Age and work your way up to the Space Age. How cool is that? You'll manage resources, develop your city, build an army to expand your territory. But that's not all. Forge of Empires has this amazing guild system where you can team up with friends, trade resources, and fight together. It's like being a part of your medieval crew. You can even collect blueprints to build historical structures like the Colosseum and the Notre Dame in your city, as they give you some serious bonuses. Did you know that Forge of Empires has over 130 million downloads and it's available on iOS, Android, and in your browser? If you use the link in the description and register, you get an awesome newbie bonus. We're talking 25 Forge points, 1,000 coins, and 1,000 supplies just for completing the tutorial. Once you reach the Bronze Age, you unlock the Welcome event, where you can earn 150 raffle tickets and 2 golden dice throws for even more rewards. Don't miss out. Start building your empire today. Download Forge of Empires by scanning the QR code or clicking the link in the description, and let's conquer history together. I would like to mention that I'm going to return to Turkey in September of this year, and you can join me. We're going to Mount Nemrut, Göbekli Tepe, Karahan Tepe, Sefer Tepe, Sayburç. We're going to see Hattusha, Haran, Sokmatar, Shuaib. We're going to see the ancient city of Hattusha and the green stone that I did do that short on the channel. So if you want to join me, click on the link in the description down below that says Turkey Tour. And yeah, maybe I'll see you in Turkey. My name is Kaylee, and in this video I'm going to take a look at the supposed Bosnian pyramids. Are they actually the oldest man-made pyramids, or is this just a very elaborate hoax? The supposed Bosnian pyramids have captivated historians, archaeologists, and enthusiasts worldwide for nearly 2 decades now. But are these truly man-made pyramids? Or are they just mountains with a slight pyramidal shape that some people want to make you believe are man-made pyramids? Let's find out if this is a very elaborate hoax or not, and let's take a look at the latest news surrounding the Bosnian pyramids, shall we? It all started way back in April of 2005 when Bosnian-American businessman Semir Osmanagic was invited to visit the old town of Visoko and its fortress ruins. Apparently, he noticed the pyramidal shape of Visočica Hill and decided to write a book promoting the idea that the hill was a remnant of a man-made ancient pyramid. He claimed that the pyramid was one of 5 massive stone structures in the shape of a pyramid with an extensive prehistoric tunnel network. He then named those 5 structures the Bosnian pyramids and established the charitable foundation, the Archaeological Park Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun Foundation, to fund the promotion and investigation of the site. Osmanagic has said that these pyramids are the most monumental construction complex ever built on the face of the planet. In October 2005, Osmanagic and his supporters initiated a long-running media campaign to promote their belief that Visočica Hill and the surrounding hills are an ancient pyramid complex. Excavations were carried out in 2006, and according to Osmanagic, the excavations involved an international team of archaeologists from Australia and Austria, Ireland, United Kingdom, and Slovenia. But many of the archaeologists Osmanagic named, having worked on the excavation, have stated that they not only did not agree to participate at the dig, they were actually also never even present at the site. Yeah, Osmanagic has also claimed the support of an Oxford archaeologist, but this particular person was found to be an unqualified undergraduate. The Foundation's website has also claimed the support of a British Member of Parliament in the past. But the name that was mentioned on the website is not a name of any sitting Member of Parliament, not from the time it was mentioned, and not from someone who sat in the past. So it's a name that was never connected to the British Parliament. This is already going great. While Osmanagic had zero evidence for his claims to be true, the Bosnian government was thrilled, as it had boosted tourism from the worldwide media attention that it had gathered. Many tourists flocked to the so-called Pyramid Valley in Visoko, and this boost in tourism and boost in their national pride was extremely welcome after the devastating Bosnian War that started in 1992 and ended in 1995. This war devastated the entire country. So Osmanagic was seen as a national hero, although the experts did not believe him and were unable to find any evidence to support his claims. And as you know, archaeology is evidence-based. You cannot make claims if there is no evidence. You can make a hypothesis and then research, but if there's no evidence to support your hypothesis falls flat and it's just empty. It's just a fairy tale. But in 2006, Osmanagic and a group of amateur archaeologists started digging at the hillside of one of the pyramids. As they were digging, they say they came across evidence of concrete blocks, which were man-made from a concrete that was poured on site, and these blocks weigh around 15 tons. Geologists that have seen these so-called blocks have told numerous news outlets that these are natural geological formations. Osmanagic has also hired a team of geologists in 2006 who took and analyzed core samples from the hills that he claims are pyramids, and these core samples show that these hills are composed of the same matter as other mountains in the area, alternating layers of conglomerate, clay and sandstone. For those who may not know, a conglomerate has a variable hardness and it often looks like concrete. It typically contains a matrix of finer grained sediment, such as sand, silt or clay, which fill in the open spaces between the rocks. The rocks and matrix are typically cemented by calcium carbonate, iron oxide, silica or hardened clay. So here on the hills of Visoko, the so-called pyramids are a natural occurring formation, and these man-made concrete blocks are fractured conglomerate, which in the eyes of an amateur may look the same as man-made poured concrete. But in the eyes of a professional geologist, they will immediately, without a doubt, spot the natural creation of said sedimentary layer. Yes, this was a very oversimplified explanation of what a conglomerate is. You're welcome. So in 2006, the European Association of Archaeologists wrote an open letter to the Bosnian government denouncing the pyramids as a cruel hoax on an unsuspecting public. This letter was written by 7 leading European archaeologists. Hermann Partzinger, president of German Archaeological Institute in Berlin. Willem Willems, Inspector General of Rijksinspectie Archeologie in The Hague. Jean-Paul de Moule, president of the Institut National de Recherche Archéologie Préventive in Paris. Romuald Schild, director of the Institute of Archaeology and Ethnology of the Polish Academy of Sciences in Warsaw. Vasil Nikolov, director of the Institute of Archaeology of the Bulgarian Academy of Sciences in Sofia. Anthony Harding, president of the European Association of Archaeologists. And Mike Hayworth, director of the Council for British Archaeology in York. Archaeologists, geologists, and historians have been worried for a really long time that Osmanagides and his group of amateurs are stripping away sediment layers that could contain layers of actual archaeology from the medieval and earlier periods. In 2008, a group of archaeologists who were not related to the Osmanagides Foundation carried out some excavations at the hills, and they uncovered medieval artifacts, and they pleaded with the Bosnian government to cancel Osmanagides' digging permits. Unfortunately, this has not happened as of yet. And that was many years ago. Who knows what is destroyed and lost forever? The area of modern-day Visoko is considered to be the birthplace of Bosnian statehood, which developed in the 10th century CE. The river Bosna and its expanding valley around Visoko was the biggest agricultural area in central Bosnia. The fertile grounds around Visoko was the ideal location for the development of early political center of Bosnian nobility. There are numerous medieval settlements in the area, some of which haven't been fully excavated, and who knows what evidence of these medieval settlements we haven't found yet. But now, because of the actions and amateur excavations of Osmanagides, we might never find these artifacts, or evidence of settlements, or evidence of the everyday lives of the inhabitants of the area from medieval times. Because Osmanagides and his amateur team have dug away the sediment layers of the medieval period and discarded them, they're now lost forever. Archaeologists have equated this to the English government suddenly giving someone permission to bulldoze Stonehenge to find chambers of lost ancient secrets underneath. Because that's a very good comparison. Irreversibly destroying a national treasure, destroying national heritage in a wild goose chase based on zero evidence. Because that's what's currently going on in Bosnia. Osmanagides and his group of amateurs have also deliberately changed the shapes of these hills, essentially sculpting the sides of these natural hills into a more pyramidal shape that would suit their claims. Osmanagides also had claimed in 2006 that he had contacted Zahi Hawass, who was at that point in time still the Minister of Antiquities in Egypt. Although Zahi Hawass has fallen off this pedestal since, and a large portion of historians and Egyptologists and archaeologists no longer take him and his work seriously in the 2020s. He's still working in Egypt, but he's no longer respected. Although that's not the point here. Osmanagides has said that he had contacted Hawass in 2006 and that Hawass had recommended Ali Abdullah Barakat to investigate the hills at Visoko. But as we now see, Osmanagides makes a lot of claims. Not only had Hawass never been in correspondence with Osmanagides, he also refuted all claims of Osmanagides that the Mayan civilization of Mesoamerica originated in Atlantis or the Pleiades constellation. And on top of all of this, Ali Abdullah Barakat is not a trained geologist. He is not a trained archaeologist, and he has no archaeological knowledge or standing. He is, however, a self-proclaimed geologist and archaeologist who never studied either field. But Barakat does claim himself to be a pyramid expert, and as he looked at the conglomerate layers of the Visoko hills, he announced that they were evidence of pyramids. Yeah, that happened. Later in 2007, in a geological report published on November 3rd, Barakat denied that nature produces pyramidal shapes and suggested that the main formation we see today may have been a natural hill that was shaped into a pyramid by human efforts. He means in ancient times, even though it's pyramidal shaped due to Osmanagides and his team changing the shape of the hills in modern times. Although he describes his own results as the pyramids being man-made as being inconclusive. Even Robert Schoch, an American geologist who himself has made wild claims on the Sphinx in Giza, looked at the conglomerate and sandstone plates, which he concluded were common natural geological formations of little interest. He also accused the workers of carving the hillside to make impressions of stepped pyramid sides on the so-called Pyramid of the Moon, and he also drew attention to testimonies from workers at the site that the alleged ancient inscriptions at the site were actually freshly made. I may not be a fan of Robert Schoch, but I respect him for this. A former employee of Osmanagides, Nadia Nukic, told a Bosnian newspaper that carvings on stones that Osmanagides characterizes as dating from ancient times were not present when the stones were first uncovered. These carvings were later inscribed by Osmanagides' team. Of course, Osmanagides has denied this statement to be true. What else did we expect? But that's at least two different individuals in two separate instances who talk about inscriptions being created by the workers of Osmanagides. So it looks like there is some base to their claims. And multiple people telling reporters that Osmanagides and his workers have altered the hillsides to make them more pyramidal in shape. All of that put together shows us everything we need to know. But let's pretend Osmanagides is telling the truth for a moment. If these pyramids were indeed constructed by hand, who had made them? In an interview with Philip Coppens in Nexus back in April or May of 2006, Osmanagides made the suggestion that the pyramids were most likely constructed by the Illyrians, a group of Indo-European speaking people who lived in the area between 12,000 BCE and 500 BCE, according to him. So while most of Northern and Western Europe were under a thick sheet of ice some 10,000 years ago, an ancient, unknown, mysterious civilization predating agricultural humans that would have needed advanced knowledge of construction, building techniques, building materials, mathematics, physics, and astronomy were somehow building these pyramids? All these things that have zero evidence for existing prior to the current known dates that we know from the archaeological record, from evidence that we have found in written form, and evidence that we have found by building materials or tools that were dated by the latest techniques. We would have known. So, as you can expect from me, I researched the Illyrians for this video, and I found out that they emerged around 2500 BCE, and there's no evidence of the Illyrians existing before 2500 BCE. According to Curtis Russell, an American expert on the prehistoric Balkans from Boston University, the Illyrians were a primitive people, small in number, who did not have the tools or the skills to engage in the construction of monumental architecture. I do, however, understand why Osmanagides chose the Illyrians to be his pyramid builders, because the ethnic origins of the Illyrians are unknown, which made it easy for him to create a whole made-up story about them and the creation of these pyramids. I mean, no one knew where they came from, so they must be a lot older, and they must have made this pyramidal complex, the monumental pyramidal complex, biggest ever in the world. Also, the claim made by Osmanagides that they were living in the area 12,000 years ago is already based on absolutely nothing. No evidence whatsoever, as there is no evidence as of yet that the Illyrians existed before 2500 BCE, let alone nearly 10,000 years earlier. He later actually made the suggestion more than once that the pyramids were more than 25,000 years old. So the little credibility that he had when he first made his claim disappeared completely after a few years of him changing his story time and time again. As you can imagine, this already makes me distrust everything this man is saying. because so far we haven't found anything to be true. But let's hear the rest of his claims, because if you think it couldn't get worse, it sure did get worse. So in 2017, more than 12 years after his initial claims, Osmanagic changed his claim on the date of the so-called pyramids again. As he said, they were not 12,000 years old, but he was reported to have claimed them to be 34,000 years old, which would make them the oldest pyramids in the world, even though at 12,000 years old they would already be the oldest pyramids in the world. Although still, there is zero evidence for his statements to be true. So from one day to the other, he suddenly decided that the Bosnian pyramids at Visoko were 22,000 years older than he had previously claimed, because saying that the pyramids are 34,000 years old sounds a lot more awesome than saying the pyramids are 12,000 years old. Of course, makes all the sense. He just woke up one day and decided, meh, they're 22,000 years older than I previously claimed. What? But of course he had to change his claim about the age of the pyramids and the builders of the pyramids, because it was proven beyond a doubt that the Illyrians, who he said were the pyramid builders, could not have been the pyramid builders at all. Because not only did they not exist that long ago, the population of the Illyrians had never been big enough to create any type of monumental architecture. You need a lot of manpower to create monumental architecture, and the Illyrians never had that. Osmanagic and his team of workers have also been clearing underground tunnels that they claim are as old as the pyramids, and these tunnels, according to him, are energy tunnels. Osmanagic boasts about these energy tunnels having beneficial effects on the health of the visitors. These energy tunnels are known as the Ravni tunnels, and they are claimed to be 3.8 kilometers long, which equates to roughly 2.4 miles. Osmanagic claims to have found fossilized leaves in these tunnels dating to 34,000 years ago. No idea on how these leaves were dated, there's no information on where the dating research was carried out, or any other trace of evidence pointing to any truth to this claim. So yeah, I don't believe it. So these ancient man-made tunnels are, in my perception, indeed man-made tunnels. But I do not believe the ancient part at all. There are a lot of people blindly believing Osmanagic's claims about the Visoko Hills being pyramids. And one of these believers actually is Novak Djokovic, world-renowned tennis player, Wimbledon champion who has won 24 Grand Slam men's singles titles. Apparently, Novak Djokovic is fond of the Visoko Hills, and he is quite known for his New Age spiritual interests, and he said he often visits the hills to recharge his batteries. He first came to the hills of Visoko in 2020, and he called it paradise on earth. He has visited the Pyramid of the Sun complex at least 4 times, alone and with family, and of course he has always been warmly welcomed by Osmanagic himself. Of course Osmanagic would warmly welcome him because, hey, that's a very famous person coming to your site, and that would bring in a lot of media attention and you can monetize that. Which they did, because in March 2022, Djokovic told Osmanagic about his idea on building a regional training center with 2 tennis courts at the Visoko Hills. Djokovic then officially opened these 2 tennis courts at the Visoko Hills in July of 2022, along with Bosnian player Aldin Setkic, Slovenian player Aljas Bedin, and Croatian player Ivan Dodic. Djokovic put up quite the unusual show, making the audience laugh by bribing the referees. We have seen Osmanagic and his workers change the shape of the hillsides over the years to make them more pyramidal in shape. In this process, they have stripped away layers of sediment from the medieval and sediment layers of the Bronze Age, the Neolithic, the Mesolithic, and possibly even layers dating back earlier than that. They have done irreparable damage to the history and archaeology of the Visoko Hills, all to boost tourism and make money. Osmanagic has continued to make alterations to the hills as time has gone by. He has not stopped, and he has funded his work either privately or through the Bosnian government. I am personally of the belief that his private funding mostly came from tourists who paid to visit the site, paid to meditate, or left contributions to the site, and not necessarily private funding out of his own pocket. In my opinion, the Bosnian pyramids look like a massive marketing scheme. Make people believe that this is the location of the world's oldest pyramids, make them travel there to tour the site, make them walk around in underground tunnels, talk about spiritual beliefs a lot, and make them feel connected to the supposed ancient people who lived there. Make the tourists leave tips for the archaeological park, even get a tennis player to fall for the hoax, and let him promote the site by building 2 big tennis courts, and voila! You have the biggest hoax in the last 20 years, the Bosnian pyramids. I've had people coming into my comments on YouTube under numerous videos calling me a fraud and a liar because I called the Step Pyramid of Djoser in Egypt the oldest pyramid in the world. Because, according to them, that title should go to the Visoko Hills, the supposed Bosnian pyramids, even though the Step Pyramid of Djoser has been dated and all the evidence does point to that pyramid being the very first pyramid in the world. That's the oldest. That's the start. It was stacked mastabas. Mastabas used to be the way that the Egyptian buried their loved ones and their pharaohs, and then they started stacking mastabas on top of each other, and you get the Step Pyramid of Djoser. We see the evolution of the creation of pyramids at the Step Pyramid of Djoser. We don't see that type of evidence at the Bosnian pyramids. The Visoko Hills are just hills that were once shaped in a slight pyramidal fashion by natural formations. But these hills have been altered continuously since 2006, and therefore they look like pyramids in 2024. But these remain simply just hills. Beautiful hills at Visoko in Bosnia. New excavations, of course, are being planned in 2024. Some people think new discoveries might be announced later this year, but I'm honestly not holding my breath for it. Osman Ajits has also made claims that the Mayans were in contact with the Chinese and that the Mayans were the descendants of aliens from the Pleiades who founded Atlantis. What? He just makes a whole lot of claims and he always gives zero evidence, but people rather believe him and his empty grand theories than believe the actual archaeologists around the world who are working their butts off. It's truly a shame. People fall for the scam, people fall for the hoax. Why? It's mind-boggling. I'm gobsmacked that people would even believe this stuff. So, what do you think of the Bosnian pyramids? Hills? Pyramids? Hoax or truth? Let me know in the comments down below. Is it feasible that there are 2 pyramids in the territory of Russia that are older than the pyramids found in Egypt? Is this evidence of the existence of an ancient civilization in the Russian territory that goes way back further than we currently hold possible? My name is Kaylee and today we're going to look into the possibility of the existence of 2 pyramids in Russia and the claims that are made. And of course, I also look at the other side of the coin because I do like to research these things and like to see what is possible and not, or like a scientific explanation if there is one. And yeah, today's other side of the coin was really interesting. So let's go and do that. As you might know, I like to scroll on the internet and I like to look at strange theories and things that people claim about the ancient world, and I don't know, lately I've been a bit into the "is this a pyramid" theme when I scroll and search things. And yeah, I mean, I created the video about the possible pyramid on Antarctica about a year ago, and I also created the video about the possible pyramid. The possible pyramid in Peru, which I personally really see as a volcano, but you know, to each their own. I researched it, my deduction skills came out with this is a volcano. And yeah, today we're looking into the possible pyramids of ancient Russia. There's a lot to unpack with today's topic. So let's not waste any more time. Let's jump right in. So the possible pyramids of ancient Russia are claimed to be located on the Kola Peninsula, which is Kola with a K and not with a C. It's not the drink. It's not the drink Kola. It's the Kola Peninsula. I mean, I've put it here on the screen. It's Kola. And as what they call the extreme northwest of Russia, and when I say extreme, I really do mean extreme northwest of Russia. Like you can't really go much further northwest than this. This peninsula is one of the largest peninsulas in the entirety of Europe. And yeah, that's the Kola Peninsula. It is bordered by the White Sea in the south and southeast and bordered by the Barents Sea in the north. And as probably everyone who understands Dutch or is Dutch or knows a lot of Dutch people will know, is that I just did say Barents, as in the very Dutch way of saying it. Barents Sea. Zee. Barents Zee. It was named after a Dutch person, so yeah, Barents. You can see how incredibly remote this peninsula is. Most of this peninsula is in a subarctic climate, meaning there are usually very long and cold winters with short and cool summers, and the terrain is mostly tundra-like. We know for a fact that humans have settled in the northern region of the peninsula as early as the 7th millennium BCE, but the claims made by the people that these are pyramids counter this, and they claim that it could have been inhabited as early as the 40th millennium BCE, which is kind of a massive, huge time gap, and it could only be explained if there was, in fact, a pre-cataclysmic ancient civilization who lived there during the Ice Age in the Arctic region. Let's continue. There are many problems with the claims that are made and the pictures they provide as part of their evidence and the entire story. Once you really research this one, this unravels pretty quickly and you really find out that this is not what they claim it to be. Many people theorize about an ancient pre-cataclysmic or pre-flood civilization that existed before the Younger Dryas. And I mean, I'm not the one to say that without a doubt they didn't exist. I'm personally on the fence with this and I'm not yet convinced enough, if that makes any sense. Not for everyone probably, but I mean, with the archaeologists that I've spoken to and the geologists that I've spoken to and the paleontologists that I've spoken to, among the people that are the paleontologists, I do mean my sister and her boyfriend because they're both paleontologists. I've spoken with them and I personally don't see evidence for a pre-cataclysmic civilization. That doesn't mean that they didn't exist. That just means that I personally don't believe in it. And that's fine because I'm allowed to believe whatever it is that I want to believe. And you're allowed to believe whatever it is that you want to believe. I'm not here to tell you what to believe. I'm just here to tell you that I don't see these pyramids as pyramids. I see them as mountains, but more on that. This civilization left nothing behind but their stone structures. So like these proposed ancient pyramids or the pyramids at the Giza Plateau or structures in Peru like Sacsayhuaman and things like that. It's possible. I'm not saying definitively that it didn't happen. I'm just saying I'm personally on the fence, which is okay. So let's look into the theory and the claims made. So among the claims that are made, they say that archaeological excavations have taken place at the Kola Peninsula. But there is only one mention of a last name of one of the supposed researchers, Volkov. The claim is made that the existence of the legendary Hyperborea is now confirmed. that the Kola Peninsula has now become a mecca for researchers and hunters for scientific discoveries. That this peninsula is the ancestral home of one of the world's most ancient civilizations. These claims are made by scientists who traveled to the Kola Peninsula to conduct scientific research at these pyramids, and that they discovered these huge artificially created stone slabs made by humans between 9,000 and 40,000 years ago. That's a massive time frame to say that something was created in between. That's a time frame of 31,000 years in which they say that this was created. It's a bit too big of a gap. It's a bit too big of a time frame for me personally to take this too seriously at the start. Apparently, Volkov, one of these researchers, said that we took a special device on the expedition, the most modern geophysical equipment known as the OCO georadar. It shines through the inner space of any object, like an X-ray. He then went on to say that these elevations are of an anthropogenic nature. Therefore, they are not natural hills, but pyramids at the creation of human hands. These scientists had discovered that these pyramids were built in an east-west alignment and that they were rebuilt 3 times. Every time they were rebuilt in height and magnitude. They needed to be bigger. But then when the scientists say what the purpose of these pyramids are is when the confusion in my brain just gets bigger and bigger. They say that these pyramids were not tombs, were not structures to be climbed inside, they weren't temples, they weren't anything but a helpful hand to gaze at the starry night. These pyramids were created and built in a painstakingly manner to observe the starry night's sky. I don't feel like you need a pyramid to observe the starry night sky. I feel like if you want to do that, you just look up to the sky, especially in ancient times when like the light pollution that we currently face in the modern day and age wasn't really a thing. So wherever you went, you could observe the starry night sky. You don't need a pyramid for that. I do feel like if you take the time to create a massive pyramid, and in this case they say 2 massive pyramids, I do feel like you need a better reason for that to be created instead of like, oh yeah, we built them to observe the starry night sky. I feel like your entire claim just falls flat at that point. Sorry. I mean, you can still believe in it, but I mean, the reasoning behind it really it comes short. It really doesn't work for me. Sorry. So as you can see, there are quite a few claims that are being made surrounding the theory of the ancient pyramids on the Kola Peninsula in Russia. So now we're going to look into the research that I've done and what I found out, because it's not what you think, I feel. So now we go back to the weird things that surround these claims and the theory about these mountains being pyramids in Russia. So the very first thing that I encountered during my research about these ancient pyramids in Russia is the fact that the pictures that they used to strengthen their claims, in fact, these pictures show mountains on the Faroe Islands. Not Russia. And they show the mountains known as Hafjall and Halgafelli. And sometimes there is a third one in the picture, and that one is known as the Klakur mountain. The Faroe Islands are located in the North Atlantic Ocean, northwest of the United Kingdom, another extremely remote location. As you see, they usually use these extreme remote locations. And the remoteness of these locations are the reason as to why people do speculate that there is less information to find about it all, and that does make it a lot easier to deceive people and therefore strengthen your claim. But the remoteness also makes it a lot less likely for the claims to be true if the locations are remote in modern times. Think about them being remote in ancient times when the climate was a lot colder, especially around the time frame they claim these pyramids to be made. The time frame they claim these pyramids to be made stretches from 40,000 years ago until 9,000 years ago. This is quite the massive time frame, and it shows that really there hasn't been any official research done on these mountains, on them being pyramids, as anyone can make such claims with this large of a time frame given. The very first claims that surfaced on the internet that used these pictures were made in 2014. They indeed mentioned that the location was at the Faroe Islands, although they did mention the mountain Kirvi, which is a different mountain in the Faroe Islands, also somewhat pyramidal in shape depending on which angle you use to look at it. Later came the claim about these pyramids to be located at the Kola Peninsula, which we now know to be completely fake. Just no, it's not them. It's not on the Kola Peninsula. Sorry. Now that we know that these mountains are Hafjall and Helgafell, we can look into the research that is done at these mountains. The Faroe Islands are obviously glacially shaped, leaving many mountains to be shaped due to the glaciers eroding around them. The shape of these two mountains seem to be coming from the cirque erosion that was caused by glaciers. But here comes another twist of events, another angle inside this claim. There is a claim being made that a geologist who studied at the Caltech University in America studied these mountains, and he was of the personal opinion that they are man-made. But even with this claim, there are holes, and in fact, this again is not what you think it will be. So let's get into that, shall we? This geologist is known as Dr. Danny Natawijaja, and he looked into the possibility of the mountains being possible artificial pyramids. He explored them and researched them using seismic tomography, resistivity survey, and other remote sensing techniques, some direct excavations and deep core drilling. But when you look further into this claim and you do the proper research, like I did, you discover that Dr. Danny Natawijaja spoke about a possible Indonesian pyramid and not the mountains on the Faroe Islands. The original claims made by people using information from multiple different locations in the world and research from these places, and they took what they wanted and they created the illusion of an ancient civilization much older than previously known, who are attributed to the creation of two pyramids, and the entire claim falls apart when you actually do the research. When you know a mountain's name, you can find out everything there is to know. These two mountains, Hafjall and Helgafell, just were created by glaciers, melting ice. They were formed during the ice ages, and I mean, I'm not saying the most recent ice age, I mean, they're probably a couple million years old. So they're not man-made. They're mountains. Mountains can have a bit of a pyramid shape. This is known. We've seen this at Antarctica. I didn't believe that to be a pyramid either. They're mountains. That's okay. It shows that we need to stop taking things for face value. We need to keep an open mind for sure and not discard everything as mere illusion or theories, but we do need to do our due diligence and do the research. And yes, it can take time and it's tedious to research these things and it's annoying and sometimes it takes a couple hours before you even find information that you were looking for. But stop choosing what to believe and start looking at the actual evidence. You cannot look at research and then take one or two things out of that you do believe and you discard the entire rest of it. That's not how scientific research works. It's super important that we do remember that when a scientist, archaeologist, paleontologist, anthropologist geologists, whenever one of them makes a claim, they have done everything in their power to discredit their own claim. They have done the research to try to show that their claim is not true. That's one of the main things in the field of science, that it's one of the most important things that they do. It's why I do believe archaeologists and paleontologists and anthropologists and geologists, because I know that they've tried everything in their power and even let their peers do whatever that they had in their power to discredit their claim. So when they make a claim, I know they really tried to show that it isn't true, and in fact they could only find out that it is true, which is why they make the claim, which is why they write a paper, which is why it's in the news. These pyramids, mountains, are mountains. I see no evidence for them being anything but mountains. The people who tried to pull this off as the most ancient civilization, who created the most ancient pyramids on the face of the earth, and they were pre-cataclysmic and they were wiped out, there is no evidence. And the evidence that they do give us falls short. It completely crumbles the moment you take the time to research it. So yes, I've seen this picture that you see on screen right now on my Facebook, and I've seen it on Twitter, and I've seen it on Instagram, and I've even seen it on a multitude of websites. And there is no evidence, and still people are sharing it because they believe it, just because a picture said it. We need to do better. Really, we do. Take the time to research. Try to get to the bottom of things. If you see anything, yes, it's intriguing. Of course. And it's fun to theorize, and I like it, and I love thinking about the fact that there could in fact be a pre-cataclysmic civilization that existed, that was wiped out. I do believe that the possibility is there. I've just not personally seen the evidence for it. And that's okay. That's my personal opinion. We don't need to agree on everything, but we do need to take the time to research. It's really important. So for a while now, I've been seeing these Facebook posts, and I've had people send me messages about a possible massive pyramid in the Peruvian Amazon rainforest. And people claim that it's a pyramid and that it's an artificial man-made structure. If it is an artificial man-made structure, that would make it possibly the biggest pyramid on the planet, because it's approximately 3 times higher than the Great Pyramid at Giza, which is already insanely high, so that's crazy. My name is Kaylee, and today we're going to look into the claims made by various people about this being a possible pyramid, and we're also going to look into the counter-arguments. Yeah, join me. Along the Peruvian border with Brazil, there's an area known as Sierra del Divisor. This region became a national park in November of 2015 after more than 20 years of Peruvians fighting for the protection of this land. This region is unique in the fact that it's the only mountainous region anywhere in the lowland rainforest. The United States Field Museum described the area as a mountain range rising up dramatically from the lowlands of central Amazonian Peru, which boasts rare and diverse geological formations that occur nowhere else in Amazonia. Deep in the Amazonian rainforest, there are tribes in this region that we have not yet contacted, which will probably stay that way if we're smart. They are known as the Matses, whom we have contacted, at least a few, and the Isconawa Indians. And it's probably best we leave them alone and just let them do their thing. Their homeland stretches from Peru to Brazil, and the area of Sierra del Divisor is known to them as the Watershed Mountains. As far as we know, there are at least 21 different indigenous tribes living in this area, and they inhabit approximately 42 settlements, but all of this could be a lot more. As I mentioned, there are still uncontacted tribes, and areas we have never been exploring, so a lot of question marks when it comes to that, but approximately that. The most unique feature of this entire landscape is the massive El Cono Peak, which is even visible on a clear day from the Andes. To the ancient inhabitants of this region, and possibly even the current inhabitants that live there, this massive, extraordinary peak is known as an Andean Apu. An Apu in the ancient religions and mythology of Peru, Bolivia, and Ecuador are the spirits of the mountains. Sometimes they even have anthropomorphic characteristics, and they're the protectors of the inhabitants in the area. So the reason as to why a lot of people think that this is a pyramid is, of course, the shape, which, I mean, that's self-explanatory, I think. And then there's the fact that this entire region is mostly unexplored and not researched at all. It's incredibly difficult to access this region, and therefore it is mostly unexplored and unknown to the researchers. But that makes people wonder and question, could this strange, symmetrically shaped mountain actually be a pyramid? To me, besides the shape and the fact that this region is unexplored, I see no evidence pointing to this being an actual pyramid. I don't see any evidence pointing to this being man-made, being artificial. I just see a mountain. But, I mean, that's my personal opinion. We might differ from that, and that's okay. So in my messages and on Facebook, the biggest argument that I've seen that tries to claim that this is an artificial structure made by men is the fact that it's the only high peak in the immediate area. The surroundings of this area are low volcanic mountains, and people therefore claim that this can't possibly be a dormant volcano. Which, in my personal opinion, it shows exactly that this is a dormant volcano because it's high and it reaches far beyond the rest. So if any of these volcanoes in this mountainous region will burst, it's probably El Cono. The counter-argument that I've seen the most used by people is the fact that it's impossible for this to be a pyramid because of its height. 480 meters in height is insane, and it would mean that this was the world's highest man-made structure up until a couple decades ago. It's simply too large to represent a pyramid or man-made structure. Then there's the fact that this peak has the classical form of a volcanic cinder cone, a classic volcanic formation that is known by the experts. Not every cinder cone is similar in shape and size, and they are unique just like everything else in the world. The area in which El Cono is located is simply a unique volcanic mountain range. There are many smaller dormant volcanic cones that burst through the canopy. They are just not as high as El Cono. As you can imagine, people would really love LiDAR scanning to be done in this area, and yeah, I'm one of them, although I'm personally of the opinion that I do hope that the government will first look into the logistics of that being done before they take any steps. This is one of the last vast areas that are unexplored in the world. It's one of the most remote areas in the world, and very little is known about the inhabitants, both wildlife and people living there. What we do know is that more than 300 species of fish, 550 species of birds, and 3,500 plant species live in the area, together with jaguars, tapirs, and more large and rare mammals. The locals who live near this area call it the land of the brave people, as the massive trees in this rainforest conceal the waterfalls and fierce rivers that provides water for more than an estimate of 230,000 people. Historically speaking, this part of the Amazon rainforest was unimpacted by the outside world until quite recently, which is why there are still tribes living in this area that have never been in contact with developed humans. No one dared to venture into the rainforest this deep in the past because it was too dangerous. You wouldn't be sure if you would survive it. Unfortunately, that unexplored vastness is now making managing this area and protecting it extremely difficult. If they were to build a road here, they would actually make it easier for hunters and loggers and drug traffickers to travel through this area. It would result in unregulated commercial fishing, hunting, and logging. On top of that, it would destroy and restrict the habitat of the animal and human inhabitants of the forest. It would spread disease to the tribal communities, and these serious threats could destroy the area in only a few years. So yes, while I find myself wanting LiDAR scanning to be done in this area, I really lean more towards the protection of it. Yes, I love history, and I really love archaeological discoveries. Preserving their habitat, preserving their way of life, keeping the balance that they have in this area, a balance that we developed humans have lost. They live in balance with nature there. These inhabitants, these people, these animals, we should not interfere. It's not our place to interfere here. I really am of the belief of that. But even then, if we find anything on a LiDAR scan, we want to go there and research it on the ground, which is an issue because to travel there, you would need roads. And for road building, I mean, it would destroy what currently is, which in my opinion is not needed. Sometimes it's better to not know what could be than to find out and eventually regret that decision. Not interfering with these tribal communities is, in my personal opinion, the best way to go forward. We would only spread disease and threaten their way of life and the balance that they've kept for thousands of years. I'm not sure how long they've been there. We will never know. So yeah. And then again, I personally really lean towards this peak being a dormant volcano and not an artificial man-made structure. But that is my opinion. You are allowed to have your own opinion. I will always keep that open. This is an open-minded conversation about what could be and not what is, because sometimes I do that. And you can make up your own mind what you believe. Was the movie Alien vs. Predator right? Is there really an ancient pyramid on Antarctica? Because if that's the case, that would mean it's millions of years older than Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, which is considered to be the oldest man-made structure in the entire world. But for the past decade, people have been claiming that there is a pyramid on Antarctica. H.P. Lovecraft wrote about an Antarctic civilization back in 1936. He had been fascinated with the continent from a very young age. But up until 1928, Antarctica was an unexplored region, which human feet had never walked upon. That changed when Richard E. Byrd had made its first exploration campaign from 1928 until 1930. Lovecraft mentioned the explorer many times in his letters. At one point, he spoke about the geologists in the Byrd expedition having found many fossils indicating a tropical past. This was his inspiration in writing the story At the Mountains of Madness. The story was about a geologist named William Dyer that had led a group of scholars on a previous expedition to Antarctica, during which they discovered ancient ruins and a dangerous secret beyond a range of mountains higher than the Himalayas. 70 years later, the movie Alien vs. Predator was released in cinemas in August 2004 and had a satellite detecting a heat plume on the island of Buvetoya, 1,000 miles off of the Antarctic coast. Wealthy industrialist Charles Bishop Wayland discovers a buried pyramid 2,000 feet deep beneath the ice through thermal imaging. They send a team of experts down there to investigate. And if you've seen the movie, you know how the story goes. If you haven't seen the movie, go check it out. I'm not gonna spoil it for you. Somehow, I think the idea of a pyramid in Antarctica got stuck in people's minds. About a decade ago, around 2010, a story came out about an expedition on Antarctica in which they had found pyramids. After the Aliens movie and H.P. Lovecraft stories and the many other stories that were told, people really stuck on this new discovery. But there were some problems. No names of any of the 8 explorers who were supposedly on this expedition were ever given. The only proof they offered were photographs taken during this supposed expedition. While the photos do show mountains with seemingly smooth edges partially covered in snow, the smooth edges and sides are most likely the results of 2 things: natural erosion and the proximity of the photographer from the mountain when the shot was taken. That hasn't stopped people from searching. And over the past decade, stories have popped up of people doing just that. In March 2016, Vicente Fuentes, a paranormal investigator who writes for UFOtopia.com, posted an image of a supposed pyramid. He shared the coordinates and made the claim that Google Earth captured the evidence of a pyramid on Antarctica near the Sentinel Range of the Ellsworth Mountains. He placed the Google Earth image side by side with the Great Pyramid of Giza. I'll put the coordinates in the screen below, and I'll make sure that they'll be in the description down below. This is believed by many to be the best evidence to date. The claim is that it's impossible for mountains and peaks to be nearly perfect in symmetry. But scientists don't agree with that. Scientists call pyramidal-shaped mountains nunataks, which are exposed rocky mountain peaks and ridges which are naturally occurring and pyramid-like in shape. Eric Rignott, a professor of Earth System Science at the University of California, Irvine, told Life Science in an email that this is just a mountain, looking like a pyramid, as pyramid shapes are not impossible to have been formed. Many peaks partially look like pyramids, although mostly they have 2 faces like that, rarely 4. And the mountain isn't that tall by planetary standards, just 4,150 feet, not even 1/5 of the height of Denali, the tallest mountain in North America. Mari Pelto, a professor of environmental science at the Nichols College of Massachusetts, said, "Freeze-thaw erosion likely led to its pyramid-like shape. This happens when snow or water fills up cracks within a mountain during the day. When night falls and temperatures drop, the snow freezes and turns into ice. The expanding ice causes the cracks to grow. This freeze-thaw erosion happens countless times, leading to the creation of larger cracks that can eventually cause entire rock sections to break off. These forces likely also shaped other pyramidal mountains, including the Matterhorn in the Alps," he said. 3 of the mountain's 4 sides appear to have been eroded at about the same rate. It suggests that since it came out so evenly, that the rock type is fairly uniform. You don't have rock layers between that are harder to erode. In other words, the then nameless mountain is most likely all from one rock layer, Pelto said. And since it's not that big of a mountain, it's not that surprising. The erosion on the east side probably wasn't as uniform as the other ridges. Instead of descending downwards, it extends, rising to even higher terrain. Pelto added that although some news outlets are saying that the mountain or pyramid is newly discovered, that's very unlikely to be the case. There's a research base for climate scientists to the south of the mountain, in an area known as the Patriot Hills. You can most likely see this mountain from up there in the Patriot Hills, he said. As for the conspiracy theorists who are wondering about the mountain's pyramidal shape, he said, "At least they're thinking about something. In the end, maybe they'll learn something in the process." But what if the scientists are wrong? They haven't done a real exploration or investigation at the site. Until they can provide evidence that this pyramid is just an actual mountain, there's still some truth to this theory. If the Antarctic pyramid was built by humans or giants or aliens, how old would it at least be? To answer that question, we have to look into the history of Antarctica. Antarctica wasn't always cold, dry, and covered in ice. It used to have a temperate or even tropical climate, covered in lush forests with various life forms inhabiting the land. By the start of the Devonian period 419 million years ago, the sand and silt were laid down in what is now known as the Ellsworth Mountains. Antarctica had been warming up and cooling down a couple of times until the Australia-New Guinea Plateau separated from Antarctica about 40 million years ago. The first ice of the ice sheets we see today started to form. Around 23 million years ago, the Drake Passage opened up between Antarctica and South America. The Drake Passage is the body of water that connects the Atlantic Ocean to the Pacific Ocean. This event resulted in the Antarctic Circumpolar Current, also known as the West Wind Drift, that isolated the Antarctic continent from the rest of the world. The ice started to replace forests, spreading all over the continent until about 15 million years ago the continent was completely covered in ice. This means that if the pyramid is a made structure, it's at least 15 million years older than the Djoser Pyramid in Egypt, which is 4,670 years old. If you'd like to see more about the oldest pyramid in Egypt, the land of the pyramids, and maybe learn a thing or two, check out that video in the end card. What strikes me as most weird about this entire theory is the fact that both Google Earth and Google Maps have dubbed this location Pyramid in South Pole. If it's untrue, why call it that way? Or are they hiding the truth? Was there really an ancient civilization on Antarctica 23 million years ago that built this pyramid? And if so, what else are they hiding? So now that you've seen the Bosnian pyramids, the Kola Peninsula pyramids, the Elkono pyramid, and the Antarctica pyramid, what do you think of these possible pyramids? Are you of the belief that they are indeed pyramids, or do you think that they are mountains, or a dormant volcano in the case of Elkono del Divisor? Let me know in the comments down below. Download Forge of Empires by scanning the QR code or clicking the link in the description, and let's conquer history together. I would like to mention that I'm going to return to Turkey in September of this year, and you can join me. We're going to Mount Nemrut, Göbekli Tepe, Karahan Tepe, Sefer Tepe, Sayburç. We're going to see Hattusha, Haran, Sokmatar, Şuayb. We're going to see the ancient city of Hattusha and the green stone that I did do that short on the channel. So if you want to join me, click on the link in the description down below that says Turkey Tour. And yeah, maybe I'll see you in Turkey. And with that said, you have reached the end of this video. If you enjoyed watching, then don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you'd like to see more of these kind of videos, and click that bell icon if you want to be notified whenever I upload. If you've not seen my previous videos yet, then click the card in the upper right corner, or click one of the videos in the description down below, or click a video in the end card. I would also like to say a massive thank you to my patrons, my channel members. Thank you so much for watching me and supporting me and being here with me along this journey that's nearly 5 years now. And I will see you in the next video.